Great.
Okay, thanks everybody. So thank you to the organisers for allowing us to speak today. My name is Rosemary Norton and I'm going to be sharing a case study of what we've been working on with colleagues Paul and Leonie at UEA. And this really comes after and fits in really well with the current discussion from Martin on assessment and I guess the landscape that we've had over the last couple of years that's still very relevant today on the discourse around should we be using AI or not within assessment, and what regulation and policies our institutions and also at a local level within our schools and faculties are putting into place. And very much similar to what Martin has said and Kiara, we've been thinking about how to both AI proof our assessment, but more so actually use AI and digital literacy to support students in being able to use it actively within assessment practices. So although the discourse a couple of years ago when we started this was very much on regulation, banning, detection, can we really detect it? Can we control it? Paul, especially within our group, was very much, let's go with it. What happens if we just get students to use it? So we've specifically asked the question, if we stop fearing it and actively encourage students to use it, what is the outcome? And what we'd like to share today is really the student voice on how they are using it, if they have the freedom to use it, and what the outcomes of that are. So the assessment that was under threat that we are particularly interested in is one that I think we can all identify is not an AI-proof assessment. So students write a 2,000-word structured literature review on an advanced topic. Now, I know from the year before when I did this that I was certain that probably students had used AI or used other functionality to generate their reports, but we had no detection available to be able to accurately detect it. I couldn't prove that a student had done it. And so we're thinking, what is the way we can still meet the learning outcomes, which is to effectively search the literature, to engage with that literature and have critical thinking on the topic, and also to be able to produce this extended document demonstrating that understanding. So what did we do instead? We actually designed it into the process of the assessment. So we use the assessment as the safety net for students with a local policy specifically for this assessment on enabling them to use AI. So we opened up the use of AI. We scaffolded this within the course with workshops to support that on prompting and on how they can effectively engage with it. And rather than solely measure the outcome, which is their written literature review, actually we assessed very much more the process. So students, as part of one of the workshops, would put their topic into AI to generate the literature review with varied success. And the key aspect of that assessment was actually their critical appraisal of that AI output. And we found that in doing that, they were able to engage and meet the same outcomes of engaging with the literature, identifying key sources, evaluating how well AI had or hadn't got the key points from that literature, the same skills we were looking for from the original assessment, but built into the new assessment design. Alongside that, students submitted supporting information of how they'd used prompts, what AI tools they'd been using as part of the process. And the short snippet we want to show you today, which is probably of most interest, is we had ethical approval to analyse some of the reflective writing we got students to do as part of the process. So this is where students, as part of supporting information, shared with us information about how they'd used it, their thoughts and feelings on using AI as part of the process, and how they'd used their own knowledge and literature to support the assessment outcome. Now, there's lots of different data, but we've got a short amount of time. So I just wanted to first of all show some of the key themes of how students were using AI, which probably won't be a surprise to most people in the audience today. A key thing when they were starting the literature review was actually AI really helped them get started with the topic. It's a topic, advanced topic, just before their research projects is something they're not necessarily familiar with. So knowing how to get something on a page, knowing how to get started, AI was very helpful for that. They also found that they were able to use AI to help explain very complex topics, so that actually it was like a step to get them to then engage with the literature. So they were able to understand the topic a lot more and then critically engage with the literature after that. They found AI was very easy to summarize content that they were finding from the literature, a lot of students were using it to help rephrase some of the information that they had written, finding it very hard to write in a professional language and in the appropriate tone that we would expect from a literature review. Some of them are using it with the mark scheme to get AI to then feedback or proofread documents that they'd made themselves, but as a kind of assistant to help them with the marks. And some students were actively using AI to help source information. And so we have Scopus AI and other research tools so to actually find reference sources to support their literature reviews. So lots of different ways, but essentially the key ways was either as an assistant or as a supportive tool. One of the key themes that probably won't surprise you that came out from the students' reflections was this discourse around time and the time associated with using AI in the process. There are a few students who actually felt that being forced almost to use AI or encompass AI as part of the process made the process of writing their literature reviews more complicated and more time consuming than they had originally imagined or perceived. So they realized that just taking a title and putting it into AI, the output that they got was invariably not going to get them the marks that they wanted for that assessment piece. So to get an output that they really were happy with, they had to put in extra work. A considerable number of students found that AI was able to help them and save them a lot of time in understanding the complexity of some of the concepts studied, and help them summarize a large quantity of information in a smaller amount of time. But the general consensus and conclusion across the board from students is that any time that they did save through having something write different parts for them actually was negated by the necessity to go and verify that information as part of the assessment process that we built in, for them to have to go and verify and check all the sources and information that they're presenting that was correct. So time was actually not saved during the process, but skills were hopefully developed. One of the key things in the literature about the potential, I guess, for AI and cheating or use of AI and cheating in assessment is this idea that an assessment task is overwhelming or too complex for students to get to grips with. And so AI perhaps use is the easiest option and something students might then use or be encouraged to use because of that. And it's clear that at least one student felt overwhelmed with the pressure of using AI for the actual assessment task itself. So they were concerned about relying on AI and that the output would not be good. And again, indeed, we found students, this assessment task it's a penultimate year task. So the level of depth required for the assessment task is in depth. And students do find initially that assessment quite overwhelming or quite hard to get to grips with. But actually, AI was really positive overall in how they'd used it and how they were able to overcome that initial overwhelm with the assessment task. So students found that it made the writing process a lot more manageable and less overwhelming. It helped them get started and overcome that initial writer's block. They were using it to structure their reviews, which helped them stay on track and stay focused on the topic. It helped to improve the overall quality and flow of their writing, they felt, and make it overall a lot more manageable. There was certainly some apprehension, but over the last couple of years that we've done it, the actual nervousness and apprehension of using AI is certainly reducing, and we're seeing more and more curiosity with AI. There's still, at least this year, a couple of students who were concerned about use of AI in terms of the quality of outputs and the possibility of false information and how that might influence their assessment mark. But that was built into the support that we did. And overall, there was a curiosity from students. So some had not used AI before, and certainly a lot would say that they hadn't attempted to use it in the way that we intended for assessment. But that freedom and ability to explore and develop their own opinions on its use were really valuable. So there was a genuine curiosity in what that meant for them and what the use of AI would look like in their practice. An interesting outcome was the frustration. So it's clear that some students had identified that putting the question topic into AI and generating an output would be the answer that they were looking for. And certainly that's the experience I'd seen from students previously. They were putting in something, we couldn't detect it, but the quality was really poor, and students didn't realise that. They thought they were getting the answer. So certainly a large group of students found that the use of AI was actually really frustrating. They were having to do a lot of verification and cross-checking, and actually felt probably it was more stressful than initially trying to find the sources themselves. So learning this at this stage was really helpful so that they can really identify how best to use this tool. And one of the key things that came out from quite a lot, and there's a nice quote at the bottom here, is that they realised that they had to take responsibility themselves for the fact checking and ensuring the credibility of their sources. And that was really one of the outcomes that we wanted to get across from students, and that was really coming through the research.
We could wrap it
Some
up.
students felt guilty.
Rosemary, we're running to time a bit now.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, so
Thank
students
you.
felt guilty of using it, feeling that maybe they bypassed some of the valuable elements of the learning process. And we're starting to see evolving perspectives on that environmental impact and the concerns of feeling conflicted about whether they should or shouldn't use AI for their studies, and how we can incorporate that in the course. And a couple of students were concerned and felt actually they may have benefited more without having the use or the possible use of AI in assessment. And finally, there was some reflections that demonstrated that actually freeing up the use of AI within assessment was perhaps making the assessment more equitable. So students for whom English was maybe not their first language, or who found fluency in the writing assessments more difficult and challenging, felt that they were on a more even playing field with other students. So we're continuing to use AI within our assessment and build and focus much more on assessing the process rather than the outcome, and evolving this assessment with our understanding and as AI develops as well. Thank you. I'll stop there given time.
Thank you, Rosemary. Sorry for cutting in. You just
No,
kind
that's
of
okay.
run into the question time just a little bit, and it'd be good to ask maybe one or two questions if we can. But that was super interesting. Thank you, and some really, really powerful feedback there. Actually, I particularly was interested in the guilty feeling as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's maybe kind of things that we take for granted or don't realise sometimes. But yeah, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, we've got about 1.5 minutes left. So I'm going to ask one question, then we'll see how we get on for time. But there are some more in the Q&A. So thank you to everyone for putting those in there, and we will get to all of your questions. So there's one question here from Marin, and she said, were there concerns about the impact of overuse of AI in reading tasks? And they've said that we notice a clear increase in readers' anxiety in students as they have been become more over-reliant on AI when facing text. And I thought that was quite an interesting one.
Yeah, it's not something that we've at least found in our research. So in the reflections that students presented, what we actually found often is what they're saying is that the hardest part, and often for us when we're literature searching, is identifying the correct papers that they should be reading given the vastness of a topic. But they actually said that because AI was helping them search more effectively and identifying, they were then able to engage more with the literature. So they actually felt it less overwhelming because they were able to choose specific papers that they were able to engage with. But it's definitely something to look out for in terms of reading literacy.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, actually. As someone who's struggled with dyslexia myself, I can actually resonate with that, actually. In sometimes I might be more over-reliant to kind of ask it to summarize like large patches of text rather than actually reading it myself. So I think, yeah, I can definitely see how that might be the case. But yeah, that was very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, to all of the questions. That they're all fantastic. We will get to them.